Welcome to our free webinar on how to get started with podcasting. I'm Jonathan Jimerson with Simpronto, where we make media marketing simply pronto. We're going to talk today about how to get started in creating your own content and creating your own logo and design and everything that you need to get started in podcasting. We're going to go over a lot of content today, so I hope you're ready to get started and dive in.
This is Simpronto.
Podcasts are a great way for companies and small business owners to start building a community with their current and future clients. It gets that trust that they get to know you a little bit more. So how can you use this tool to build that brand and to get your business started or going to the next level? That's what we're going to discuss here today. Let's go ahead and get started. Here's an overview of what we're going to cover. Idea phase, like getting started, the steps of solidifying your idea, defining your audience, picking a format, how often should you be publishing your content, creating your brand, how to record your podcast, what type of mic should you use, what hardware or software do you need to record, having guests, finding or creating graphics, music beds, intros and outros, how to host and distribute your podcast, best practices, and so much more. I'm excited to help you on your new venture. Let's jump into the content. You have already taken the first step to creating your podcast. You have sought the information on what you need. That's excellent, but I do want to caution you on one thing that plagues many creative people when they start a new project or career path: perfection. Many people want to make sure they have everything perfect before starting, and this is not possible. Alexander Graham Bell said, "The only difference between success and failure is the ability to take action." Another good quote on the subject is, "Waiting is a trap. There will always be a reason to wait. The truth is, there are only two things in life, reasons and results, and reasons simply don't count." Robert Anthony. I want you to write down a goal as to when you want to have your podcast available to the world. Then, as we go through the information, set deadlines for each step that line up with the goal of completion. This is the only way you will hit your goal. Remember, if you aim at nothing, you will hit it every time. Zig Ziglar. Take a moment now to write down your goal. When do you want to have your podcast available for your listeners? Now that you have set your goal, we need to take some time and figure out what your show is going to be about. The first step to creating your podcast is defining it. Start with a general idea. Is it health and fitness, sports, financial, self-help, entrepreneurial, spiritual, creative, how-to, history, science, news, or anything else? Once you have a general idea, and you probably already do since you're here, we need to make it more defined. Think about what you want the people who are listening to walk away with. What is the purpose or draw of the podcast to keep people coming back for more? If you have trouble thinking of a specific topic based on your general idea, try searching for your general idea on Google AdWords or BuzzSumo. These services can help show you what people are interested in. Type in a keyword like fitness, and it can tell you what types of posts got the most engagement, so you can cater your podcast to a specific niche or find stories that will get the most interest based on internet search history. Take a minute to write in detail what topics you want to cover and answer these 3 questions. Who will care about what I'm talking about? What do I want the lasting impression to be? What will keep them coming back for more? Next, you want to define your audience. Now that you know what it is you're trying to cover, we need to think about who we are trying to reach. This will help us with our advertising. If we know who the ideal audience is, we will be able to get the word out to them. Here are some of the things you want to be thinking of. If you had an ideal listener, what would their age be? Would they be young, middle aged, or elderly? What is their vocation? Are they in leadership? Have a small business? Stay at home parent? What would some of their hobbies be? Some of their preferences or desires? What do they struggle with? Fitness, weight loss, procrastination, focus, low self esteem. Where would they be listening? On their way to work? At home? While they work out? These are the types of things you need to know in order to make sure your podcast is having the most impact it can on your audience. Once you have figured this out, you will know how you can help them the most and give them content that will engage, entertain, and educate them. Take the next few minutes and create a profile for your ideal listener. So now that we have your theme and ideal listener, we need to start coming up with ideas for content. There are many ways to research ideas for content. See what people want on social media. Start asking people you know what they would like to hear about your given topic. Get feedback from other businesses and colleagues. Many times the best content comes from your experience. What is your inspiration for doing this? Is it a personal journey that got you here? Is it something that you've been through? Always remember to think about how the content will benefit your audience. Let's take some time to develop our podcast description. Write a line or two that will describe the purpose of the podcast. What do you want others to know about your show? We want this to be descriptive, but also grab their attention. Check out some other podcasts to see how they are describing themselves. You may not be able to have it perfect right now, but as you continue to move forward, take time to revisit this and smooth out some of the rough edges until you are happy. Next, we need to think about the format of the show. Will it be audio only or video too? What type of show will it be? Each type has pros and cons. The interview-based type. These are generally easier to do as you will be having guests who will bring the content and you will be there to ask questions and help get their points across. It's also great for building business relationships and networking. As you do more and more shows, your sphere will grow. This is probably one of the fastest ways to build your audience too. As guests come on your show, they will also bring their followers, which now have heard you and may connect with your message. To establish yourself even more, ask to be on their show too, if they have one. There are some things to be aware of with the interview type show. You have to make sure you can line up the guests consistently. One tip here is after the interview, ask them if they know anyone else who'd be a good fit for your show. You also have to be good at keeping up with your schedule and being flexible with your guest schedules too. You never know what they're going to say in the interview. They could end up going in a whole different direction than what you expected or wanted. When this happens, don't feel obligated to produce that episode just because they recorded it with you. Another option is host-based. This is a great option if you have a good understanding of the content you will be presenting. It's also nice because you're fully in control of what is being said and topics being discussed. You don't have to rely on others for content or fit it in the time to schedule them for recordings. Just remember, you are responsible for all of the content, so you will need to keep it fresh for each episode and make sure that it doesn't sound like the last one over and over. Also, there will be no help from others to help build your audience. A subcategory of the host-based is teaching-based. Just like the host-based model, you have full control of the content. You will also need to think about a growth plan for your audience in this model. The content needs to be where a new listener can jump in at any time and learn, but it also needs to build from one week to another. It's a fine line that you have to walk so that you don't lose new listeners because you're relying so much on previous content and losing your audience because there is no growth. There needs to be a learning and growing plan. Make sure, if you mention concepts from previous episodes, to tell them where they can find that episode if they want more in-depth content on that subject. Of course, you don't have to be set in stone about what type of podcast you want. You can have a mix of each of the types we have mentioned. Once you have a plan for the type of podcast show you want, you now need to determine the length and frequency of the show. There's no real cookie-cutter solution for the length of show, but you can kind of categorize it into a few different ones. Do you want to be a short and to the point type? More casual and conversational, for maybe 15 to 20 minutes? Or do you want a longer 30 to 40 minute show with more information per episode? The length is not as important as the consistency. What frequency did you say you were going to do? Whatever it was, make sure to do it. If it's a weekly podcast, maybe you need to make it shorter. A monthly one might need to be longer per episode so you have time to fit all the content that you want to cover that month. Whatever you decide, you need to be reliable so your listeners will be able to come to expect new content and look forward to that day of the week or date of the month for new content from you. The next step is to start considering your branding. What do you want to convey as soon as people see your logo and title? What makes your show special? Here's where you want to use the profile you set up as the ideal listener and build your branding with that in mind. Let's start with your title. You want to convey a feeling or result when people see your logo, title, or tagline. So what are some ways you can brand your title? You want to have a title that you and your listeners can connect with, something you're passionate about. It can convey a lifestyle that you want them to relate to or a goal, like you fit now. Keep it short and sweet, something that will promote curiosity and interest in learning more. It needs to be simple but also memorable. Use keywords, if you can, that would show up in a search for that topic. This will make it easy for them to find when they're searching for a podcast to listen to. Even though you may want to have a tagline, you don't want your title to rely on the tagline in order for it to make sense. The other thing you want to watch out for is making sure it's not too general or common. Take some time to create or evaluate your title. If you want to add a tagline, you can do that now too. Your logo. Coming up with a logo can be hard, especially if you have no graphic design experience or the software needed. There are plenty of options here though. If you have an idea but no skill in design, you can go to Fiverr.com and get one designed for you. You can easily find someone to design a logo or cover art for $5 to $10. There are also other options like Design Evo, which will let you build a logo for free using their templates. It's easy to use and free. There are over 10,000 templates and millions of icons to choose from. Other options and resources are spark.adobe.com, canva.com, and Photoshop if you want to have the most tools and options available. I've said this a few times, but look at others for inspiration. If you are stuck or need an idea where to start, the main thing to remember about the logo is that you want to be simple and clean, but distinctive and recognizable at the same time. Podcast intro. The best way to create interest and keep the attention of your listeners is to have a great intro. There are many different ways you can start your show off, but most have a combination of some of these sections in them. Theme music. Almost every podcast you can find has some sort of theme music. you want to have something that will be recognizable and catchy, something that fits the mood and emotion you are trying to produce in your listener. If you are not a music producer and need some help here, there are some great sites that have copyright-free music available to use in your podcast. YouTube, believe it or not, has free music for content creators. You can sign in with your Google account and go to their audio library to find tons of high-quality music to use. Some other places to get free or cheap music are Audio Jungle and Music Free Archive. You can also do a search on Google to find plenty of other sites that offer subscriptions or purchase individual songs for your podcast. Another part of your podcast intro could be an ad. This could be an ad for a product you offer or from a sponsor. Something like, "This episode is sponsored by Hamster. We keep the wheels turning." It doesn't have to be something long. This can help increase revenue. A lot of shows start with a quick excerpt from the show that grabs their attention, or an introduction to the topic they will be covering in the show. Usually this is something that is done before the canned show intro. If you're having trouble figuring out how you want your show to start, listen to some of the top podcasts in the category you are trying to produce to get an idea of what listeners want and expect. Podcast outro. You also want to have an outro for your podcast. This is where you can leave them with the next steps, your call to action. In your outro, you want to have things like promoting subscribing, likes and comments, provide access to show notes, tips, and downloads. Here are examples of some things you might want to have in your outro. You should ask them for feedback. Something like, "Tell us how today's show impacted you." You can leave a review in iTunes or give us feedback at ... To help with getting more people to leave a review, which will help your ratings rise, you can also have a giveaway or prize that they will get entered into when they leave a review. So you could say, when you leave a review, you will automatically be entered into a drawing for ... Once you have a sponsor, you can have them provide the prize or whatever you're offering. Another section to your outro might be telling them to go to your website for show notes or downloads of things you mentioned in the podcast. Guides, links, tips, book references, or articles are all things that you might want to have on your site in order for your listeners to fully engage with your content. One of the main things you want to get started is a good computer. It doesn't have to be the newest or most expensive model, but you want it to be able to multitask, like handling streaming and recording of your screen if you're doing video, while also recording audio from a mic. It doesn't matter if it's a Mac or PC, you just want it to be able to handle the workload. Recording software will be needed as well. Audacity is a good free option for Mac and PC. Many people use professional apps like Adobe Audition or Logic. Whichever way you go, make sure to find some tutorials on how to use them. Things you want to be mindful of is how to compress the audio so that the volume doesn't go from loud to soft and back. You also want to look into how to remove noise and working with multiple tracks. Probably the most important piece of equipment is the mic. No matter how great the content is, it won't matter if they can't hear or understand you. Your mic is something that you want to make sure you think of as a long-term investment. You want to have full audio that is rich and compelling. Since this has the most impact on the sound quality of your podcast, you don't want to skip out and just find the cheapest mic. It doesn't mean you have to find the most expensive mic either. But one thing to remember is that a good mic maintains its value over a long time. So if you ever need to, you can sell it and regain a good portion of your investment when you're upgrading. Other things you may want to think about are getting a boom stand for your mic, a shock mount to help you eliminate noises from vibrations on the desk or when you move the mic. A pop filter will help you remove those boom sounds that happen when fast air is moving and it hits the mic, like with words with the letter P. This can dramatically improve the sound quality of your recording. Some good mic options are Audio-Technica AT 2020, sells for around $169. A Shure SM58, you can find these for around $90. If you want a high-end mic, one of the best ones out there, the Healy Sound PR40 is a great mic. You can buy one with a broadcast arm, shock mount, and windscreen for around $400 on sites like B&H Photo. One thing that is easy to forget about is a good set of headphones. This helps you reduce the amount of noise in the recording environment. Without headphones, the mic will pick up any noise from the computer that is playing, or if you're interviewing someone online, it will pick up their voice and make it sound like there's a big echo in the room. You also can't hear how the recording is going until it's over, and then it's too late to fix the issue. You want them to be comfortable and produce a full range, but headphones are purely a personal preference. Now for these mics to connect to your computer, you will need an audio interface. This is an area that you don't want to skip out on as well. With a poor audio interface, it will produce noise into the recording. Hums and buzzes can be common, which are hard to remove in editing without causing your voice to sound compressed or unnatural. A universal interface that works on Mac and PC is the Scarlett 2i2. It's probably the most common one you will see in a recording studio. Goes for around $160, and sometimes you can find them bundled with a mic stand, and headphones for around $300 to $400. If you want to take your recording to the next level, you may also want to think about soundproofing your room. The acoustics of a room have a huge impact on the quality of the recording. A lot of echo and reverb heard on a recording will come from the wall closest to the mic, so you might want to start with the wall behind your mic. When having guests on your show, you want to make sure that you have a separate mic and headset for them as well. Using the interface I recommended, you can plug two mics in at the same time, so you will only need one interface. If your guest is not local, you can interview them through apps like Zoom for a video conference or Skype. If you are doing an audio-only podcast, which many people do, Zencastr is a great tool. It produces the highest quality audio because the recording is done locally on each computer, then uploaded to the cloud after you're done. Even if you're doing a video interview, this might be something you want to do in addition so that the audio is clear even if they drop internet speeds for a second on their end. After it's over, it uploads it to a service like Dropbox, and then you can edit it easily. Hosting. Just like if you were to have a website, you need someone to host it. The same thing is said for podcasting. So where do you put your podcast once you have them recorded for others to hear them? Podbean is one good option, one of the easier ones out there to start it with. Libsyn is a good one. SoundCloud, Simplecast are also really good options. Whichever one you choose, you need to locate your RSS feed and submit your podcast to iTunes and Stitcher. These are the two biggest podcast libraries out there, and they will help you by tracking your subscriptions as well. Launching. When you are about to launch, you want to have 3 to 5 episodes in the can so that you can post them right away, and also have a few ready to go shortly thereafter. You want to have people leave 5-star reviews, as this will help you get on the new and noteworthy list on iTunes. We have gone over a lot today, from getting started with an idea to graphics, recording, and hosting. If you need help getting started with your podcast in any of these areas, let us help you. Reach out to us at simpronto.com.